Hello, and here we are again. We're going to start this video on problem 18 on test 2 review, which is finding composite functions from tables, graphs, and equations. So we have 4 problems to deal with here. So here's the first one. It deals with problems from a graph. So what we do first on a graph is we evaluate the closest function f of -8. Since this is the function f, we would go to -8 on the graph and we would evaluate that, and that would give us 2. So this would be g of 2 because the f of -8 is 2, and then we would go to 2 on the axis again, and we would go to the g curve and evaluate that, and the final answer to this would be -4. We go from g of 2 and we read it off. This is our answer. Okay, we're going to do the same thing again. We're going to start with g of -8 this time. So we're going to go to -8. We're going to do g, which is -2. And then we read to -2. And we read the f graph, and that's going to be +1. So the final answer there is +1. All right, g of 7. So that means we have to go to 7 the first time. So g of 7. So we're going to go to 7. Here, g of 7 is 0 right there, so we're going to have g of 0 because this part is 0. And then we're going to go to 0 and go to the g function again, which is the red one, and that's going to be -6 for that value. Alright, final one here on the graph, f of -5. We read over to -5, read up to the f graph here, so that's going to be 4, so we have g of 4. Because this part is 4, and then we read to 4, and we read to the g graph, which is the red one below, so that value is also -6. So that's how we read the graphs. We read from this piece first, find the answer, and then plug that into the other graph. Now, we do the same thing with functions. If we have a function, we plug in this part first, and then we take that answer and plug it into the next part. So for number 2a, we're going to do f of g of 2, so we're going to do g of 2 first. So we plug in 2 into g, so we're going to do 1 minus 2 times 2 squared is what we're going to do, and that's going to be plugged into f. So that's going to be f of, in this case, -4. That's +4, I'm sorry. +4, -8, so this is going to be -7, and then we're going to evaluate f of -7, which is 3 times -7 minus 5, which is -21. -26 would be the answer for A, for number 2. Part B would be, we'll do the same thing, but we're going to reverse it, so we're going to do f of -2. We're going to start here with f of -2. So f of -2, we put -2 right there. That's going to be -6 minus 5, which is -11. And then we're going to take -11 and plug it in here. So -11 squared is 121. So that's going to be 242. And it's 1 minus 242, so it's -241 will be the answer for B. And then C, we're going to plug in 4 twice to F. So the first time we plug it in, it's 4 times 3, which is 12. Minus 5, which is 7. So then we're going to plug 7 into this, and that's 21 minus 5. So that's going to be 21 minus 5 is 16 for C. And then D, we're going to do g of -1. So we're going to plug in -1 right here. That's going to be +1 times -2. Or, well, +1 times 2, which is 2. 1 minus 2, which is -1. So that means if we plug it in again, we're still going to get -1 again. So both of them gave us -1. All right, so that's 2. Now 3, let's do that up here because I have more room. Do problem 3 right here using these functions. We're going to do 3 right up here. 3a. We're going to put in, again, g of 2. G of 2, so g, and we put 2 in right here, so that's 4 times 2, which is 8. 8 plus 1 is 9, so we're going to then take 9 and plug it into f. So 9 plus 2 is 11. So this is going to be the square root of 11. Part B. We're going to do f of -2, so we're going to take in -2 in here. That's 0. Square root is 0, so that means we're going to do g of 0, because that's our answer. If we put 0 in here, we get 0 plus 1, so we get 1. All right, now f of 4. So we're going to do f, and then we got to plug in 4 for this value. So that's going to be the square root of 6. All right, now we're going to take in the square root of 6 again. So that's going to be not very pretty. Square root of 6 plus 2 there. So this is our answer in radical notation. And then the last one is g of -1. So we have to put -1 in here. That's 1, 2, 3. So we got g of 3. We put 3 back in there. That's 9 times 2, which is 18 plus 1 is 19. Okay, so that's evaluating those using the formulas that they gave us for f and g. All right. The last thing here, it says find the actual functions as they're composited together. So f of g of x, which is the same as f circle g, is where we take g and we put it into f. So we take this and we put it in there. So it's going to be 2 minus 3x plus 1. So we take the 3x plus 1 and we replace that x. So f of g of x equals, this is going to change to -3x minus 1, so it's going to be 1 minus 3x. All right, then g of f is the same as g of f of x. We're going to take f of x, that's this one, and plug it in here. So we have 3 plugging in the 2 minus x for x. Right here, you're taking the 2 minus x, plugging it in there. So that's going to be 6 minus 3x plus 1, which is going to be 7 minus 3x. That's g of f of x. Now f of x, we take the function and we plug it into itself. So it goes 2 minus x. Well, that changes to -2, which is going to drop out with that one, plus x. So you're just going to get x out of f of x. And g of x, we're going to get 3x plus 1 plus 1. So you take the x and we plug the regular function back into it. So that's going to be 9x plus 3 plus 1, which is 9x plus 4. Would be g of x. So when we're doing these rules, we're not going to get a number value out of them. You're just going to get a new equation. All right, moving on to problem 19. Problem 19 states, identify whether it's 1-to-1 and whether it has an inverse. Okay, 1-to-1 means that you only get one value. That means you can't double up these values. This is not 1-to-1. And it also means that, so this one would also be not 1-to-1. Because if we were to put into the function 1 and a negative 1, we'll get the same g of x value out. We'll get, if we put 1 in there, we get 5. If we put negative 1 in there, we get 5. So it's not 1 to 1. If you look at a graph, it doesn't pass the horizontal line test. So this right here, if we drew a horizontal line, a couple different horizontal lines, there's a couple places where it's going to cross twice or more than once. One time. Not 1 to 1. So if it crosses more than one time, this is not 1 to 1. This is 1 to 1. So the only one in this thing that is 1 to 1 is this graph right here. So this is the only one that has an inverse without changing the domain. Alright, so only need to change the domain. We would have to change the domain on the other ones in order to have the inverses happen. Alright, now number 20, moving on to number 20, it says read these values from the chart and find them from the chart. So this is the function for these two. We're looking at this chart. Now we're doing the inverse function, so what we're doing, these are actually f of x values. So you're looking for the f of x value of 5. So the first one, you're looking at this and you're going to read back. So this is 0. So the second one you read back from this is 3. Now on the graph when you're doing that, you're reading back from the y-axis. These are the y values, so we're reading back from the y-axis. So this is a y value. So we're taking negative 2 on the y, which is right here, and we're reading to the graph where it is. It's right there. And then we read to find the x value, which is right here, so this is 2. Alright, and now this one you go to 4 on the y-axis. Here's 4 on the y-axis. You read over till you get to the graph. And then you read down to get to the x value. So you read over to the graph, and you read down to the x value. That's 4, 2, 4, 6, 8. So this is 8 here, so this is going to be the value of 8 here. So remember, if it says inverse, you're going to read backwards on the graph. Always backwards on the chart, or start at the y-axis and read to the x value. You always go across left or right to find the graph. So if I said G inverse of negative 6, then we'd start here at negative 6 on the x-axis. We'd read to the left till we hit the graph. These we were reading to the right because the graph was on the right. But you can also read to the left, and that one would be negative 2 for the x value. Okay, so you read to the graph left or right, and then find the x value for that. Alright, so that's problem 20. So we're going to end there on this video, and we'll continue with the other video on the other problems.